So, Dr. Elouise Epstein, you're here in Brazil.
I am here in Brazil and
in
loving
person, bone and flesh. So I would just like to, at first, say, I think in behalf of me and Rafa, a warm welcome. Very happy that you are here. You have been my reference in procurement for the past years. Read your book, heard a lot of your podcasts. So awesome to be hosting one with you here. And yeah, at first, welcome. And then I would say people in Brazil and Latin don't really know you as people know Rafa in Europe, US. She's like a pop star.
Yeah, I'm pretending it is normal to be here with her because I tried to reach out to her when we were in Amsterdam for the DPW, and like a crowd following her, and I was like, oh my god, she's untouchable.
You guys are too nice.
So welcome to Brazil, and if you could also present you a little bit to our Brazilian market here and tell a little bit more. Who is Dr. Elouise Epstein?
That's a good question. If you figure it out, let me know. First off, thank you for hosting me here. I'm so excited, and I have really enjoyed Sao Paulo, and it's a vibe. It's its own vibe, and I step out on the street, and it's just, I'm just so happy to be here, and I want to come back and go to the north and try out the beaches, swimming with the dolphins and the turtles. That sounds like fun. So I definitely want to come back. I'm Elouise. I'm a partner with Kearney, and I'm based in San Francisco. I've been with the firm just about 25 years, which makes me an old timer in consulting. So I'm rather old, and I have spent my entire career in digital procurement. And what I do is help companies, the big companies of the world, the Mondeleses of the world, or the J&Js of the world, with their digital strategy. But that's just half my job. The other half is researching, writing, and public speaking about the profession and how it's evolving, and more specifically how digital and now AI are changing the profession. And so I'm very focused at a macro level, and I like to, somebody termed me a futurist a few years ago, and I think that fits because I look at the future and work back to where we are today, so I'm not, or let me rephrase that, I'm not concerned about the problems of today. We will solve the problems of today, and I want to inspire us to get to that future.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. So we have a lot to talk and discuss. I don't know if we will have enough time, but most of the questions and topics we brought from your book.
Yep.
How to Hack Your Supply Chain, which is a great book.
Thank you.
By the way. So tell us a little bit about the inspiration for the book, right? Why now, and why is that so relevant for the profession? Yeah.
Well, so that's my, one of the things I do is write books, and that's my third book, and I have two more coming out, one later this year and one big one next year.
You made like a promise, like 5 is the charm, and less than that, and
I try to do a book every other year. So
how many books have you written in the past 10 years?
I don't know if I read one book every 2 years.
So, and what I tend to do is I do a lot of discussions and working with clients and reading of the news, and more importantly, history. I'm a historian by training. And when I'm inspired to think about the future, I really try to anchor it in where we are today and where we've come from in the past. And one of the things that so when I set out to write a book, it's to help practitioners. I write for practitioners. It's very detailed, and I like to use historical examples. And one of the things that drove me crazy throughout the pandemic and the lockdown was all of a sudden everybody realized that our supply chains are overextended. They're global supply chains. They break easily, as we learned in 2020. And then we had a huge rush of, in the US, we call it snake oil salesmen, that people that are selling, they're just selling nonsense. And that pretty much describes most of the risk technology market. And I realized that what they're selling is not risk management or even ESG. A lot of the ESG solutions are not selling ESG. And so then I got mad, and then so I vented my anger in the form of a book. and so like one of the examples in the US, for those that have traveled to the US, are, I probably shouldn't say this publicly, but are the TSA agents, or the transportation security that do the security at the airports. If you actually deconstruct what they're doing, it's really security theater. It's not actually protecting folks from like the quote unquote secure side is not really secure. And so that's one of the examples that I put in the book of, we're just perpetuating. All those agents are there for is to make the travelers feel better. Because if you're really going to prevent risk, or that I don't want to, if you want to prevent terrorism in the airline industry, you have to stop it months or years in advance, not on the moment, because that's way too late. And that is also true for risk and supply chains. So then I started to think about it more broadly, and I realized all these surveys, all these market scanning tools, what are they doing? They're just, it's risk theater. We're not doing risk management. And yet, third-party risk, supplier risk, is the biggest threat to any big corporation these days. And that's when I just, like, once I realized that, it's like, okay, I need to really like hammer that. And that's very much, that became the thrust of the book. And then, of course, once you go down that path, then you realize if third parties are the greatest risk to the enterprise, and we have to work with third parties for ESG, then you sort of look over to the left and you realize, oh my God, we all our supply chains run on ERP systems, which were designed in the 1990s. So now we've got to upgrade our ERP systems to something more modern, and we've got to do different risk and different ESG. So all of that together. So that's really the thrust of the book.
Yeah, and you mentioned two things that really caught my eyes when I read it. One of you talk about, or you defend, a new architecture in terms of, it's risky, it's not working, it's too fragile, so we need a new architecture. I would like for you to dwell a little bit more on that, because it's kind of hard to build a new architecture when you are like stuck with 10, 20-year contracts with your old ERP that you can really, you don't have like a lot of maneuvers you can do. And also you mentioned a term that comes a lot over here, this risk theater thing. So you talk about how the risk in security in airports is a theater, but could you also explain a little bit better why is that also a thing in enterprise? Because you also say like, cybersecurity nowadays is more of a theater than really preventing. So I think that's something I would also like to know. And you also mentioned ESG theater as well, if I recall. So if you could pin out those two, I think we'll have a lot to push you through.
Okay, well, this will turn into a mini lecture. So on the first part, on the enterprise architecture, ERP systems were designed in the 1980s and evolved over the 1990s. And so they were designed at a time when P&G and Unilever and Mondelez ran everything inside the four walls. And that made sense. And you could control the systems. You could control all these aspects. And now most supply chains use a lot of contract manufacturing capacity. They use a lot of third-party logistics. So all of a sudden, massive amounts of the supply chain are already third parties. And then we also have all the raw materials and the indirect materials, and oftentimes even indirect categories can shut down production lines. So during the pandemic, during the lockdown, if you couldn't get PPE or personal protection into the factories couldn't open. So indirect materials became very important. And so when you start to look at all of those third parties don't they're not designed, the ERP was not designed to operate with those third parties. So what do? How do you actually bring those third parties together and exchange data from them? And that's really the fundamental piece. And as a sidebar of that, if you have 50,000 suppliers to run your supply chain, you can't run 50, no enterprise has enough people to run an enterprise supply chain or to manage 50,000 suppliers. You don't. The most you could do is 1,000. And of those 1,000, 100 are going to be tier 1, 900 are going to be tier 2. And then what about those other 49,000 entities? You have 49,000 entities hitting your corporate systems with no governance. That should sound alarm bells to every CIO, CISO, chief supply chain officer. People should be freaking out about that, and nobody's worried about it. And so what's the risk management we do? We ask, when we onboard the supplier, we ask them to fill out a survey. When the EU or the government comes out with a new cybersecurity restriction, we ask the suppliers to fill out a survey. Same with ESG. How is a survey making us any safer? So I send...
You pointed that like we're trying to know how much a supplier can lie, how good is it a supplier is lying when answering a survey, because what's the point?
Well, and even if they're not lying, do they even understand? Like, are you SOC 2 compliant or SOC 3 compliant? Is there even a SOC 4 compliance? Like, maybe the supplier doesn't even know.
I gotta be honest, I also answered that as I answered a survey. How do you manage your greenhouse gases? And I said, no, not applicable, because I'm a software company, and I did that back in...
I walk from the office to home, so...
Exactly.
That's how you manage.
Well, and this gets to, I mean, not to go off topic to your question, but part of my issue with ESG tools and solutions is that we're giving arbitrary ratings. Kearney, as an example, Kearney is quote unquote platinum certified for ESG. And yet I flew from San Francisco to Chicago to Brazil, and I'll fly back to New York and back to San Francisco. And none of that carbon footprint is counted in that platinum, because there is no challenging of whether that's the right thing to do. And so it's like the practical realities are disconnected from the sort of certifications, quote unquote. So how are we actually making a difference? Nobody asked me when I booked my travel, is there a better way to go? Can I fly halfway and then take a train or something? Again, not a good example coming to LATAM, but in Europe, like could I instead of just flying to each country, should I take a train? That's what I mean. We have to change operationally. And I use an example in the book. A neighbor of mine in the Bay Area, he started a robotic, he builds robotic machines to put on for waste management lines. Where
neighbors in the Bay Area, I just had a neighbor with robots, That's
how I imagine.
I like to joke when you go to San Francisco and anywhere in Silicon Valley, if you go to like a coffee shop, you hear people pitching each other and talking about, this AI thing or that machine learning. Like, you hear the weirdest things that make sense, and then you go to other places in the America or wherever else, and it's like you never hear it. So my neighbor, so he built these, or he's deploying these robotic arms that pull recycling off of waste management, or when trash or rubbish goes down the conveyor belt, the robot pulls the recyclable materials off. And what was amazing about that is, like, in the US, only like 30% of households recycle, and of that 30%, large portions of it just go straight to landfill. So they call it wish cycling. And because you wish that it was being recycled. And so his goal is because the robots will pull more recyclable materials off the conveyor belt. That's the kind of ESG that we need to get behind. So if you're an aluminum provider, or you make aluminum or cans, or you're a beverage company, I don't care that you have green bottle caps or like you're made recyclable materials. I care about what's the consumption in a particular region and how much can we tie that back to what's getting recycled. And now my friend my neighbor with his data, we can get recycling data. We can see the number of Coke cans that go down and that get reclaimed. We can quantify the number of beer cans, whatever. I don't drink beer, but anyway, so that's what I mean. Like we're actually tying consumption to recycling, and we can start to make efforts. Because if you just make a recyclable bottle and somebody throws it away, what have you done? It's virtue signaling, and I'm not having that.
Yeah, and I was thinking, right, the risk theater in the supply chain and or the certifications that are not really tackling the real problems, right? And of course, a good part of your book is dedicated to AI,
yes.
right? In data literacy in
yes.
the procurement organizations, which I think is great and much needed. How do you think that Gen AI can help to protect supply chains? And what have you seen in this space?
Yeah, and I'll preface this. We'll probably talk about this later. But what I realized in writing this book, or as I was in the formation of it,
it must be hard, yeah. Every month something new, and you're like writing, and oh my god.
Exactly. Like I had finished the book, and then and I was getting ready to publish in like November, and ChatGPT blew up like in September, or like I forget the exact dates, and it's like. I got to write but then I just added a couple bits in the final editing and basically said, I can't tackle Gen AI in this book. I'll do it in my next book. And so yeah, it's totally hard when the world is
spoiler about the next book, right?
Well, actually, yeah. Well, I'll talk about that. I'll answer that in a minute. But what I realized is that we have all the technology. We've got massive amounts of technology, especially if you move beyond the ERP into the cloud infrastructure. We have access. I mean, as a startup, you didn't have to buy a bunch of servers. You didn't have to buy a bunch of software. You can just buy or lease whatever the right term is, rent from a cloud provider. I mean, that's an amazing, and you have access to hundreds of capabilities that you can just use your credit card and run up a tab. That's amazing. And so we're at this moment where we have access to all this technology. And I realized it's the people, that this is really about the people and changing the culture and changing the people to get them to the future. And so I have this quote that says, the enterprise has all the technology it needs, or within 18 months, it'll have all the technology it needs. The issue is Excel and apathy. And so we have to break that cycle. So we can buy all the technology we want. We have to fundamentally change the whole paradigm on people. Now, as it applies to Gen AI, this is really, I think, important because what I argue is going to happen is Gen AI is going to be the interface to all these transactional systems. And I'll give you a very clear example. As of January, so a couple of years ago, Carney put in SAP as our finance system. And if anybody has ever used SAP, it is horrible. It is just a horrible
interface. You have to memorize all the codes.
Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And so when I log in, it takes like, I don't know, 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes for everything to load because it's running Java from the early 2000s. It's just like, and there's tabs and tabs and tabs within tabs. And so as of January this year, I've vowed I will never log into SAP again. I'm done. I'm just done. And I'm also not doing Salesforce either. So I'm just done because these are such.
I wish I could do that as a supplier. Say no, I'm not logging
I'm
in.
not
I'm not sending. I'm not responding to this RFP. I'm not doing to do that. Then I'm like throwing everything out. Then you get everything back and you log in there.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh.
Well, and I'm trying to start a movement here that, rise up.
I'll embrace it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm on it.
But this is the issue is it's so horrible. And it's not that, well, actually, it's funny. I don't even know what my numbers were last year. I have no idea what they are this year. And so, but I'm taking a stand. But I'm also waiting for Carney to deploy an agentic framework. And once that comes, then I will build an agent that will co-connect to SAP and go get my numbers and pull them in so I can, hopefully it'll come soon so I can figure out how I'm doing. But that's because why should I waste all this time? So I have to learn all these codes. I can just point an agent to the codes, and it'll interpret the codes and it'll plot the codes for me. So why should I waste my time? So anyway, so I think in that example, my agent is going to hollow out the SAP system, and then Guilherme, my colleague who's here, he's going to do the same thing. And so now we're not interfacing with SAP. We're interfacing with agents that are just storing data in SAP, which, of course, and it could be Oracle or any of the other, or NetSuite. But the point is that the value of SAP just went down or any of the providers, because now the agents are doing the heavy lifting between the users and the system.
Perfect.
And I think me and Rafa, we were discussing about the book before our talk here, and you mentioned something right now that brought me this topic again, is kind of, enterprise have the technology, but the biggest issue, or one of the biggest concerns, is the people or the employees or the leadership that's going to deploy or enforce or make this technology useful in enterprise. And I think Rafa said that, and I completely agree. People will still be one of the biggest concerns. You were also mentioned that, and I think that goes back to the name of the book, like how to hack your supply chain. And you're also always saying we need to do more instead of learning more, and less of the trainings and training. People need to be there, like trying to see if it's risky or not. You mentioned a lot of those phishing emails examples and so on. And I still think that's one of my biggest concerns, or I would say one of my biggest questions I have for you, like from the perspective of incentives, So it's like, I'm going to take this ERP in because it's the greatest provider. It's like the less risky approach. It's going to be like a 10-year implementation or so. Probably I won't be here to see it go through. So why bother not to be an agent of change when probably that's going to mean that I will be putting my neck out there, and probably I won't get the perceived value of that. So how can you go against, like you said, now I'm starting a movement here. How can people join this movement without feeling so left out, like feeling dumb, so to say?
Well, there's several things in there. So we might have to take this from several angles. First off, we have supply chain management as a domain, and procurement in particular, are very new functions. Like they kind of evolved over the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. They sort of coalesced in the 90s. So as a function, depending on how you frame it, we're a very new function. CFOs have been around for maybe 200 years, maybe even longer. So understanding how supply chains work is still a new phenomenon. And many chief supply chain officers of the previous generations and the last two generations, they didn't understand technology. I would argue today's heads of procurement and supply chain they're not comfortable and fluent with technology. And the problem is they're making decisions from a place of fear and from a lack of knowledge. And I'm not criticizing them. I'm just pointing out that that's why the CIO says, quote unquote, we're an SAP shop. And so the supply chain or procurement person says, okay, I guess we're going with SAP. So they're ceding their authority to the CIO, and like, you can't do that. And you're right. So we're going to sign up for an ERP implementation that's going to take 10 years. So, and I'll be gone if I make that choice. I'll be long gone. But you're making a decision to put in a tool that's already out of date. Take your latest version of Oracle, NetSuite, SAP. They're all out of date. It's all out of date technology. And the problem for the enterprise is you're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to do that. And at some point, and it's just like the example I gave you a moment ago, you're going to drive the whole supply chain off a cliff, because all of a sudden we're locked into, I have one client that's going to spend $1 billion on an S4 upgrade. Wow. And they just started it last year. So they've got 9 more years to go for something that's already out of date. And so even if they stop
getting more out of data by the minute with all the
exactly,
AI
exactly.
So
that's exactly. So they're going to drive off a cliff when all of a sudden they realize they'll be halfway through their implementation and there's no point continuing, and yet they'll have spent $500 million for what? And this is the kind of leadership we need to say, get out there and do this. Now, to sort of tie it back to the people, we have to train people on tomorrow's skills, not yesterday's skills. And so if you go to all these procurement academies and learning management systems, which I write about a lot in the book, or I take issue with, is that those don't train people. Like, you have to do the work. So when it comes to AI, we have to learn it. And so when we start focusing on the people and individual personal productivity and team productivity with Gen AI, that's where we can get value. I can get value today for any person and any client today. I don't have to worry about data. I don't have to worry about use cases. I can teach somebody how to use Gen AI today and build agents and do this. And I think that's the breakthrough. And so when I say I'm going to build an agent to connect to SAP, I'm not technical. I have no idea how to do that. But I know that I can ask Google Gemini to create the agent that will do that. And all I have to do is give it my username and password, and it'll go do that. I mean, that's how easy it is. So I hope I answered your question. I know I went on like that. I went wandering on that.
More than my question. And I think I also question myself whether, talking about also in perspective, your book was written, or at least I saw it being launched at the end of 23.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you were, as you mentioned here, AI, and also in the book, and picking from what Rafa said, on the book you mentioned, people are fuzzing a lot about AI, and I know you hate buzzwords, and I know you're also always telling, let's take a little bit slow. And you also said that in the book in a way when you mean that AI is not enough if you don't have good enough data to support it, especially those Gen AI solutions. But since the launch of that book, even the AI market really evolved into ways that's not only this very basic traditional ChatGPT, hey, tell me this, and he tells it. You got those whole agentic networks, workflows being automated, operators that go in websites, purchase. So how did your view evolved since the conception of the idea of the book? And put it in a simple way, are we really that dependent of good data to really extract value from all of those automations? And I would like a fresher perspective on that topic.
So I'm going to answer the question slightly different. I'm going to answer a slightly different question, but I will get to that. My view has evolved, and to answer very simply, I believe you can get value today without having good data. Now, we can unpack that, but that's how far and how fast this has changed, and my perspective has changed, just to put that out there, that even now I'm blown away at the stuff is coming so fast. I mean, everybody needs to be paying attention, because this is truly amazing to watch this. Now, I need to go back. I'm going to sort of go a slightly different direction. Agents and AI are going to eliminate, or not completely, but pretty much eliminate IT, HR, legal, finance. What does finance do? They send invoices, they reconcile, they code the general ledger. Like an agent can do that. The machines do that much better than humans. So those functions are toast or like burned, like they're done, and goodbye, good riddance. Like we don't need you anymore. That will happen to procurement for everything we do in source to pay. So when we run sourcing events, do category management strategies, SRM to some degree, but I'll put an asterisk by that one. Procure to pay, spend visibility, all this stuff. If we're doing that in procurement, we're not adding value. Just stop doing that. I want the agents to come in and replace us to do all of that. And that's happening. I'm watching that happen. I think if we do another podcast recording a year from now, we will see that is happening in Excel.
Even inside that enterprise.
Yeah,
Even inside enterprise.
Now, maybe not quite as fast as I'm describing, but faster than you would probably think. Now, here's the trick. The caveat is that doesn't mean we fire all of procurement. I actually think that's the exact moment that procurement will do real risk management. Because now, instead of getting a feed from like sending a agent out to scrape a bunch of stuff and bring it back, we can actually have agents do very targeted work. I can build an agent to my supplier X. I can have an agent just dedicated to analyzing everything that supplier X does publicly and marry it with any data we have internally. And I can have a series of agents that do this. I can have an agent that just does financial risk for supplier X. And all of a sudden, then and I like to say every employee a manager of agents. Now, all of a sudden, procurement has a real role. And in going back to what I said, if we have 50,000 suppliers, our role is to manage 1,000 suppliers, and our role is to get the 49,000 out of our systems. So we, as procurement, have a ton of work to do over the next couple decades. So I think as a function, we're going to grow.
You said one thing that I totally agree, that procurement is a new function, and basically Kearney invented
to a large
function,
degree. Yeah,
right?
no, I think that's fair.
Everything that we know, category management or the 7 steps of doing sourcing, I've been trained on that so many times. Is it like new frameworks coming? I know you don't like frameworks.
Hate frameworks.
Should we throw all that away? Now that we have Gen AI and that we can do things differently, and maybe we don't need to spend so much time doing category management and profiling suppliers, ABC, whatever. Is there like a new update on the 7 steps of strategic sourcing coming out? Or what is also Kearney doing in terms of all of those frameworks that were invented in the past?
I'm not going to speak for Kearney because what I say may or may not be. They don't. True. I think people don't listen or read. I don't think they read my stuff. My Kearney colleagues. I don't think they read it because because I'm basically telling them that the things they're selling are out of date. But so they keep selling it. So what do I know? Certainly. So let's just break this down. So. Think about a category. Let's take IT as a category. So we have category managers for IT services, for IT hardware, IT whatever, software, hardware, all the different elements. So what do? We have a process for we have a process for sourcing. We have a process or sort of a strategy for a framework for the category, for managing IT as a category. But that assumes that it's a very sort of services perspective, because I can sell you 7-step sourcing, I can sell you category management strategy, the famous chessboard or the Porter 5 forces or what all these other frameworks. But in reality, I've already made some limiting decisions when I've done that. because if I just go to 7-step sourcing, that assumes that that's going to get me the best outcome. But what if I want to do game theory? What if I want to evaluate all the potential framework or strategy methodologies? Like Gen AI allows us to do all of that simultaneously. So why would I anchor myself to a rigid process when I can say, I need this. We're going to move from grid computing to quantum computing. Like there's no, like the framework's not going to help me. I need to actually understand the markets and the technology, and now I can have a series of agents that will do that. And sort of to take it a step further, think about that OpenAI and Gemini have deep research agents that you can give it a topic. It will go out, research, and write you a paper, and then you can ask it to summarize the paper. And you can also take all of your data into a tool like Notebook LM, which is a Google product. It's just for free. Mm-hmm. And it will analyze all of your specific data on a category. Because here's the thing, back to your question about getting data right, is every category manager has all the data they need. It's just sitting on their laptop or isolated in some Google Drive or Dropbox. So if I can just put that into a singular Gen AI framework that I can just point my agents to that data, I can change how I do category management, because it's going to learn all the frameworks and the methodologies and why we would pick one lever or the other. And then, oh, by the way, I can have a different set of agents that will go run the sourcing events. So all those pieces of the 7-step sourcing, like I can have agents that do that, but the agents are even smarter, so that they might start with the negotiation strategy long before we ever run the sourcing event. So that's why I think all those things are irrelevant.
When you say in your book, when you're like criticizing frameworks, which I loved it, you say that we have to shift from that thread that we have of process, people, and technology, right, into intelligence, tools, and people. Yeah. And I really like that, because procurement is so framework driven and so process driven, and that in a world where you have Gen AI to do, or whatever, that you have like not only Gen AI, but so many things happening simultaneously, you need to have intelligent people making decisions and not the frameworks that were created, I don't know how many years ago. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, and my issue with the frameworks is they don't match the real world. Real world procurement, we learned this in March of 2020, because all of a sudden none of those frameworks were relevant. We went 2 years without those frameworks because we were making it up on the fly. And I think that is much more likely, or that's the reality. And so, yeah, I'm not having with the frameworks.
And as you guys were discussing the replacement of like traditional service providers, and I really also agree that consultancy and technical provider, they are at risk. Like I was talking
100%.
I got caught off guard as I was speaking with other fellow tech founders from other startups, and some of them were explaining to me how they are doing therapy with those agents. You know, it's like, I have this big ass problem in my life. You are my therapist, but I want you to be a mix of Plato, Nietzsche, and Marcus Aurelius. That's the problem. And he says, man, it's a fraction of the cost, and it really helps me. Not everything I can do already with this, but then I was thinking, oh my God, but people are already doing therapy. What about all the other things like physical, eating, consultancy? You know, I want to know a little bit more. Like, we are trying to certificate ourselves in our ISO 27001. So you should bring a consultancy forward. But if you use deep research and all the knowledge combined, then it's kind of like 1,000 consultants at your disposal for like a fraction of the cost. So I think that's one of the things that really is memorizing me, you know, in terms of shifting.
Yeah. So I have to give credit to Matt McCarrick. He's a founder of the company Sligo, and he's doing Gen AI agents, and he wanted to get my attention. And so he went and pulled, he didn't ask me, he just did it. He went and pulled all I have a YouTube channel with all my videos and presentations and podcasts, and on LinkedIn I have all my articles, and he took my books and he put them in and trained an agent, and he created a virtual Elouise agent. He's cheeky and he wanted to get my attention, and it got my attention, and it's amazing. And I think it's and it has my sarcastic tone.
Yeah, I was going to ask as spicy as you.
Oh my God! So
you can talk to yourself all the
time.
Yeah,
exactly. But you can ask legitimate questions about digital strategy, and what he's done is codified my 25 years in consulting into an agent, and he did it in 8 hours, and now he does it. He can do it in an hour, and that's just staggering. And so, yes, the consulting...
And not only knowledge, even avatars, voicing.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's virtually you, literally.
Exactly. And so I was showing my wife, and I asked it a question about what can history tell us about business? Because I write a lot about history, as I said, and so you
are a historian, right?
Yeah. My PhDs and masters are in history. And so, which will get to my next book, but so I said, what can you tell me about history influencing business? And so Virtual Elouise came back and said, well, somebody slept through history class. Let me explain. And so, I mean, right out of the bat, so my wife was completely freaked out by the whole thing, But again, so I think the consulting market's absolutely going to collapse. I mean, it's not going to go away. There's always going to. I mean, there's various reasons why you hire consultants, but these armies of consultants, and you see the big four accounting firms and even McKinsey, Bain, and BCG are scaling back, and so there's a lot of movement. I just want to go back to the other question about tools, intelligence, and people. I'll give you one example on that came from a client. Is their accounts payable, the people that write the checks or release the checks of the payments, they are the first, middle, and last line of defense. So they get fraud requests all the time. And in fact, there was an article that came out late last year where Google, Meta, and one other tech company have been spending like $100 million on paying fraudulent invoices. They just had no governance over it. Just a ridiculous amount of money. And that's because we have humans doing work that is really difficult with no use of tools or intelligence. And so why do we not filter all of those, any request that comes in through intelligence using various tools so that the last line of defense is the people? And so I use the U.S. Secret Service, which is the U.S. organization that protects the president, and talking about how they set up layers of defense. And so I think it's important because we are not securing our supply chains in that same manner.
Yeah. When people, also in your book, you were saying that when people ask you, what is the next disruption in supply chain, right? I'll quote your book here. Perhaps the greatest threat to our supply chains will be the humans who run them.
Yeah.
Right. And not necessarily the next big pandemic or so.
Yeah. And so this gets to, so with all this Gen AI and stuff that we're doing, which is great, and we love it, and everybody's, we're going to do all these amazing things. The reality is the work to be done is on relationship management, human to human contact, because ultimately we are humans living in a physical world, and relationships matter, at least until Terminator Judgment Day comes, and that's a different issue.
Or AI overlords come. And,
exactly, take over. But right now, the three of us, no matter how much AI is used to produce this podcast or not, or we could do any number of things with AI, the three of us are sitting here at a table, talking, communicating. We're learning from one another. There's other people in the room here. So relationship management and all those elements of working with people matter a lot.
And I think that that brings me also to the theme of our event here. That was something that was really fun to do. It was really connecting people, bringing you here to LATAM and connecting, trying to exchange more of those ideas. I think that's really hard to put in an AI framework,
Yeah,
so to
yeah.
say, that to really replace that. And I think that's also something that I think me and Rafa are especially interested in understanding. Your perspective is we were talking a lot about technology providers, so we discussed a lot of about enterprise and people internally in enterprise. But we have the challenge that technology is going to be solved by third parties, by suppliers. So technology is evolving a lot. You mentioned ChatGPT in a lot of specific topics here, but I would like to understand a little bit better. How do you see this new technology procurement landscape in terms of providers involving? Because we discussed a lot in 2023, 24 orchestration as the new big thing, you know, and it was like everybody, oh my God, and the process and a good UX, and let's reinvent the ERP. We don't need it to use it anymore. We have a front end. But now we get this new element that's also creating chaos. And how do you see this evolving in terms of landscape? Do you see some kind of ChatGPT taking all the market and all of those smaller providers, or everything's going to disappear or consolidate? Do you see localized solutions as like what me and Rafa are doing, are existing in this new world, or are we going to be devoured by those big guys over there? We are worried, right, Rafa?
Oh yeah, after she's done with the spider chart, right? with all the SaaS and procure tech companies, and we are not that anymore. So, oh my God, what happens now?
So I'll frame it in two ways. One is we're in the next evolution. So in the early 2000s, we had the late 90s, 2000s, we had the dot-com bubble. And that was mostly business to consumer, and now, or B2C. And then in the shadow of that was B2B. We had some early e-sourcing and some early RFP solutions. And then eventually those ran out of gas and they got acquired or went out of business. So you had Ariba acquiring Free Markets. Abbreviate got acquired by UGS, and I forget what happened to the others. So we had about 10 years of suites, which was, hey, I've got Ariba, and it'll solve all your problems. And that turned out to be just short of fraud, because as we talked, the source to pay process doesn't work in the real world. That's not how the real world works. So then we've got, from about 2017 to now, has been the SaaS explosion. So I call that version 3. And that's a reaction to what happened, that suites missed the mark. They just absolutely missed the mark. And so we had chaos. We had VCs just fire hose of cash, just like, you have an idea, here's cash. Let me give you more cash. And so we've had crazy valuations from 2000 to 2020 to 2023, the valuations were crazy. One risk vendor had like $1 billion valuation, and I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing? Like, there's no way. Anyway, that's one of the reasons why I motivated me to write the book. But now we are moving into a new generation, and I call it the AI procurement platform. So this is really how all of that previous technology evolves into, and we're going to have new platforms, and they're going to be AI based. And so everybody that was on the cutting edge in the SaaS explosion, which would be the orchestration players, now has the inside track to make it to be part of this fourth generation. And so I like to say, if you've seen Talladega Nights, the movie, there's this quote that Will Ferrell plays the main character. He says, if you're not first, you're last. And I think that's very true. Like, those that get over the line are going to be the winners, and those that don't are going to shrink. And I think they'll still stay in the market. They'll either get consolidated and gobbled up by private equity, or they will become very specialized agents and or data feeds. So I do think there's opportunity, but there's not billion-dollar valuation opportunity. And so I think that's the disconnect, because everybody that raised cash from 99 to 2023 with huge valuations is in trouble.
True.
And going to need an exit strategy.
I think we're getting to the end of our time. Rafa, do you still have one more question before I make my final wrap around question?
Well, I have many, but I'll leave it to our lunch. Yeah, sorry, we have the opportunity to be with her a few more minutes. So
yeah, and like I said, we're here to exchange ideas. So that's the main reason of this podcast. We are also hearing more from Elouise today in Brazil. Also in a room, hopefully, full of procurement practitioners. Yeah. And as you said, that's why you wrote this book. And I think that's also a good note to end this conversation. Since you are now talking like more broadly, like online, hopefully with this material, but also in person for this new audience, like LATAM executives or leaders or procurement people, what would be your message in terms of what they should worry about? What should they be thinking? What should they be doing, considering they are not on the center of those discussions? As we said, like Latam always is kind of seen at the last, and the US, Europe, Asia, mathematics. So what should those guys be thinking about now?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the question, and then I want you to ask me another question about what my next book's going to be about. So first off, I don't think it's a negative. You don't need to be worried. You have to be aware of what's happening, and it's absolute chaos. And like I said, go to San Francisco. I mean, we have robo taxis running around the city.
My neighbors like building like a monster robots.
Yeah. So it can feel it is overwhelming. I mean, the amount I can't keep up with the changes. And I talked to Matt from Slide.
It's hard not to be scared, right?
Yeah. But also, but my advice is the same to everybody. Do something every day with AI. Just learn it. Just become comfortable with it. Because if you read all the articles, first of all, everybody writing the articles has no idea what they're talking about. And second of all, do it. It's so easy. The keys to success in this next era, very simple. Hard work, motivation, creativity. That's it. If you have those three traits, the AI will do the rest. And so we are going to see people come along, like go back to the ERP. We're going to see people come along with very simple amounts of AI completely disrupt a quadrillion billion dollar business. I don't know how big they are, but like think about that. And just the way we operate in life, it's going to change fundamentally. And so that can be a good thing. And we see this if you have kids in school, that they could just chat GPT a report. Means we have to change the educational systems. Like just writing a report's not good enough. And it's training, we got to train kids and society for looking for bias, understanding data that we feed into the machine and how that bias, and then validating output. That's our job, not doing all this other stuff that is nonsense. So don't fear it. Embrace it and start looking at it. And I say everybody can build an agent. I mean, if I can do it, I'm old and I'm not even all that technical, and I can build agents. And it's so easy. You just scratch your head and think, what was I worried about? There's nothing to be worried about. So that's my advice. And I think this disparity, because you've talked about a couple times, of North America versus LATAM or Europe, like there's this FOMO, the fear of missing out. I think in the AI world, because it levels the playing field, much like the internet did 30 years ago, the commercial internet, where it leveled the playing field now that we all have the same access to the same data. And in some cases, like in the US, we have terrible high speed internet. So like some places have much better internet than.
And we pay things a lot faster here in Brazil as well. So I can tell you that financial infrastructure here.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would also, so it's not only about fear, but it's also, you know what, you might actually be ahead in certain things. And so there's a cultural ideology change or a mind shift set that has to be reset on this. And so, I like to inspire people because I think it does change, and the world again sort of was it Thomas Friedman in 2000 wrote the book The World is Flat, and it was really basically saying the internet connectivity was flattening the world. And I think we're at another moment where AI is going to flatten, do another flattening of some sort, where the haves and have-nots are going to even out much more.
So provoked we were, and if our AI overlords allow, what book is coming next?
Okay, so you're gonna love this, I'm loving it. I'm excited about it. So I have, all my day-to-day work is talking about this AI and making people not worried and understanding and doing my own exploration. So it's just like AI, cutting edge, robots, all this other stuff, right? Just like intense, robo-taxis, it's the whole thing. So what I decided is that my next book's going to go back and do a history of supply chains. And because I think we are going so far, so fast that we also need to just go back and appreciate where we've come from. So I'm going to I'm actually going to use my history degree and go backwards. So I'm very excited about that, and I'll tease it a little bit by saying that and this gets to your question, that my final paragraph, I'm only going to put one prediction in the book because it's a history book about everything that's happened, but I'm going to put one prediction in the book, and my prediction at the end is that we have over-indexed on digital, we have hit peak digital, peak AI, whatever, and that we're going to see a resurgence of analog technology and people going back to books and interpersonal communication, getting off of social media, getting off of our phones. So I think there'll be a movement. I don't know what shape it will take, but I'm convinced.
She's starting another movement.
That's 3 movements we've started in one podcast. I just think that we are just strung out on digital, and I see us like wanting to just, at least in some ways, pivot away.
Mm-hmm. Get back to human touch.
Human, because we've lost a lot of that, and part of that was the lockdown, and that set the society back. And you have a generation of kids that were displaced by the pandemic or the lockdowns, and they think crave human and need to learn human contact. So that's my prediction.
And I think that's a great wrap up. What I love about history books is that they are timeless.
Yeah.
So I hope this podcast talk is going to be timeless as well, and also what we're having later today. But Elouise, once again, thank you so much for joining us, for chatting. I learn a lot every time I hear you. And in person, I'm learning even more. So I agree with you. In person contact is even better than hearing only the digital. And we will see you later today. Hope to have more of Elouise's ideas.
Leo, just one question. Is there a launch date for the book already?
No.
No.
Okay. Exclusive here.
No.
Breaking news.
Actually, somebody posted on LinkedIn that I'm releasing my book, next book, at DEW 2025 in
Virtual
October.
Elouise Epstein
She came to Brazil to launch
your
the book.
virtual avatar said next month, so yeah, you now have to.
So I had to post a comment saying, no, it's not. It's sometime in 2026. It's coming, but I haven't gotten very far. So.
Okay.
We're looking forward to.
But thank you for having me. I've so enjoyed being here in Sao Paulo and Brazil and having a great time.
Yeah, we are too.
Thank you.
Thanks. Just starting. Yeah, thank you, Elouise. It was a pleasure.